Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good day everyone. I wish you guys who is currently watching this video to be always healthy and happy. Okay, in this occasion, I would like to deliver my brief research that I brought into this simple presentations. Well, the reason why I choose this topic is because it suits with my own experience. That is why I did this research regarding to this in order to find other people's opinion, others people point of view, or others people insight. My research entitled "The Life After Erasmus: How Students Respond Toward Post-Erasmus Depression Syndrome or PED syndrome." To make sure that you guys could understand how my presentation going, so I made a simple outline that I will start with background, which I will explain about introduction, and then continue with literature references that I use, and then research method, and the most interesting part, findings and discussion, and in the end I will close this presentation with the conclusion of all things. Before we step into our main discussion, I think it's important for us to know what is the meaning of Erasmus itself. So what is Erasmus? Erasmus stands for European Region Action Scheme for the mobility of university students, which is a student exchange program in the European Union that established in 1987. What we need to know further, so we are going to understand the meaning of post-Erasmus depression syndrome, or I'm going to say it further with PED syndrome, and then we are going to define the symptoms of the PED syndrome, and then we are also going to examine the behavioral change for the former students of Erasmus. Because this research is psychological based, which is analyzing about behavioral changing, so I put two research questions. Namely, the first one is what is actually the main cause of PED syndrome, and the second one is how students deal with the PED syndrome. Using the theory of learning process, which was revealed by B.F. Skinner in 1938, quite a long time ago, but the theory is still relevant until today because many psychologists still use it until now for the current situation. So this theoretical approach is related to behavioristic theory because this explains whether attitudes can be learned in the same way as any other habit. There are actually many explanations about behavior itself. Because there's a lot of meaning by the expert, by the psychologists, by the scholars about the essence of behavior. So I'm using other point to ensure or to make more clearer about the correlations to the theory and my further findings. And here I'm using the elements of behavior, which are namely the personal experience, social factors, the learning process, and the last one is observation. So let's see whether is this relate to each other with my theory and my findings. About this part, I really need to be honest, this is the most hardest part because the topic that I brought is super lack of references, but fortunately I found two journals regarding to this. The first one entitled "I'm Not the Same After My Erasmus, a Qualitative Research." This took up an experience of former Erasmus students, which is really inspiring and kind of helped me with my further research. The second one, entitled Exploring the Relationship Between Values and Pro-Environmental Behavior, the Influence of Locus Control. This is mainly discussed about the ability to behave or control or influence the situation, which strongly related to psychological scope. And combining these two variables, which is experience and psychological things, it obviously helps me for my further research. Talking about research method, I'm going to explain the procedure of mine in arranging this research. The whole duration for the research making is along October until December 2020. And firstly, I choose a qualitative method. Then I specified and as well qualified the instruments as well the participants, and those things I did around October. And after those 5 respondents select based on my own criteria, I conduct the interview with them during 20 until 27 November. And in the end of the month, I gather all the findings, and afterwards, I conclude all the findings and relate it with the theoretical framework. Well, the most important and the most challenging part merge in here. For the further explanation, I'm going to divide the findings or the results as well with the discussion based on the question. For the first question, I think all the respondents have impressions that is included into the unforgettable moment, and mostly because they are enjoy to be friend with new international people, or attend foreign activities, or encounter a diverse educational system, and experience rather contrasting cultural variations. And for the second question, all respondents have different answer based on their period attending the Erasmus program. The most different one is because COVID-19 pandemic. So 2 of my respondents were forced to return back to their country because of the pandemic. The third and fourth questions, actually these 2 questions are seemingly related to each other. So starting with these 2 questions, the findings or the results started to lead into the behavioral scope. So various kind of answers as their expressions from the respondents are conveyed. And the findings also find another graphic that I could relate with the situations. It named Kubler-Ross curve. This model is applicable in most cases and circumstances related to the change and is adaptable to various behavioral changing. Well, by the answers of those 2 questions, majority of the respondents feel disappointment, and they were on the pace of denial on the returning day, or even until the first week or until the first week of their return. The fifth question is also related with the last 2 questions. So the Kubler-Ross curve is also implemented in this question, but the unique part is starting from this question, the answer or the response or the point of view of each respondent starting to various. Some of them admit that they are already settled on their first month of their return, but the rest of them felt the different or felt the opposite. And for the 6th question, the findings found that the 3 of the 5 respondents was not sure about the syndrome, but they do admit they do feel whether they have the symptoms. For the last question, it generally defined that all of the participants want to go back to their Erasmus country, but not all of them, however, have the purpose of studying or working there. It's just like they want to go back, but just for leisure or vacation. Alright, now we are reaching the end of the part of this presentation. So with all the findings and discussion, I can conclude that 3 of 5 respondents consider the term of post-Erasmus depression syndrome or PED syndrome obviously was not really recognizable, but they could not deny whether all of the respondents had a change in behavior that occurred to them. The second one, relating to the theoretical framework, so I get that the personal experience and social environment really affect the response of each respondent in dealing with PED syndrome. And the last one, in order to relating with Kubler-Ross curve model, the stages of behavioral change among the participants can be different. So that's all for my presentations. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.